All right, CIS255 database environment. Let's get you connected to Azure Labs. So I'm going to show you what the teacher side of this looks like. Your student portal will look different, but your connection instructions, excuse me, are the same. 20 minutes to get this thing up and running. And then I have 15 minutes to connect before it shuts itself off. Now this is my template, so I'm making changes to the template here at the same time. I'm updating the template for this class in the spring of 23. You can see initially, right, this was the template I used in the fall. So I have to run Windows updates and I have to do a number of other things. But once your VM is running, you'll click on Connect to Template in your Downloads folder. You're going to get an RDP file. That'll be named something like this. You'll double click it and you will be presented with this screen. Now, I'll write this up in a Word document for you. The user ID you need is CIS-255 user. The user ID is not case sensitive. So ID is CIS. Okay, did I put a hyphen? Sometimes I put a hyphen in there and sometimes I don't. So 255 user. The password is password with a bang at the end, an exclamation point. Capital P, @ $, W0, 0, not an O, RD. Okay. W0RD, bang. I always say bang with an exclamation point. Now I could choose to remember me. It's not going to remember the password though. And you're going to be presented with securing. Now this may take a second, it may take a minute. But at some point, my screen will flash. I'm going to read this box and I'm going to click yes, I want to connect. You've never seen this box before? Read it. I'm presenting this to you, which means I'm free to test you on it. If you just, get in here, I don't want to see it again, and you click yes, and I ask you to tell me what the error message is you see, now you've got to scramble to Google it. Okay. Nothing wrong with taking notes. In the workplace, this is potentially a big issue. I've got an expired certificate. I've got a certificate where the name of the machine I'm connecting to doesn't match the name in the certificate. How do you think browser hijacks happen? I present you with a page that looks like Amazon.com, but my certificate doesn't match Amazon.com. You're just going to bypass that? Plug in your credit card number like you're ordering stuff off Amazon? Okay, are you out of your mind? Okay, read the box. Understand what the box is telling you. In fact, I'm going to intentionally not do this, okay, because I may ask you this later. I'll say yes. Now, it'll initialize. This takes a minute. I should have played the Final Jeopardy theme song. And we're going to wait. So let's see. All right, I had to pause the video there. I don't know what happened. The template just powered itself off. Not really sure what the scoop is. All right, so I have downloaded 2 different instances, 2 different templates for you to use. Okay. In a previous video, I had said, I made this background obnoxiously bright and pink. I put a note here at the top of this tool. This is called BG Info. Do not do anything to this machine. Don't run Windows updates. Don't install or uninstall any programs. This is your host computer. Your host computer for the database class consists of 4 cores and 16 gigs of memory. I can see that information here. Now, not the 4 cores. I have that information elsewhere. Down here in your system, your taskbar, I've got a link to a program called Hyper-V Manager. So I'm connected to Azure Labs now. let's connect to the program I want you to use. Okay, so there's a Windows 10 VM inside this machine. So this is a virtual machine inside of which you have a second virtual machine. This is known as nested virtualization. This allows you to create your own instances and modify them to your heart's content. And if you break it, you break it. Now, I would strongly advise you to be careful you don't break it, because it can take hours to rebuild these things. And if you're like some of my typical students where you wait till the last minute to submit assignments and you break this, am I going to give you an extension on late assignments because you waited until an hour before an assignment was due, only to find out your VM is broken and it takes a minimum of 2 hours to rebuild? No, I will not. Okay. Consider yourself warned. Okay. So Hyper-V Manager. Here's a nested VM. You'll right click it. You will start it. Now start is not an option because it's already running for me. So let's open it. So inside this virtual machine is a Windows 10 box. This is the box in which you'll do all of your work. Now, first thing I want to look at while we're here, let's take a look at, okay, so we have about 50% of the drive space free. This number will decrease as the semester goes on. I want you to pay attention to, now this is File Explorer on your host machine, right? So this manila folder right here. If this number gets under 10 gigabytes, I want you to email me straight away. If you run this pink backgrounded VM out of drive space, you're not going to be able to start your nested VM. Now, I have a fix for that. Unfortunately, the fix does not include me being able to extend this disk. This is as large as I'm allowed to make it. Okay. So Windows 10, how do I get signed in? ID and password. Hey, it's the same password that you use to sign into this machine. Well, sure, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So we're going to sign in as admin with that password. Now the admin user ID should automatically populate for you. So while that's signing in, let me bring over, because I've taught a couple of sections of this. Let me bring this one over. These are two different VMs, so don't concern yourself with that. What I'm doing is I want to boot up this nested VM on this platform and compare and contrast it to the VM on the platform I'm showing you. Okay, so I'm gonna get signed into this one, and then I'm gonna move this screen back to the my other window. All right. If you get asked, want to make it discoverable? The answer is always yes. All right. This is what you're going to see. This is your Windows 10 machine where you're going to be able to make edits. Now, we're going to look at these desktop shortcuts, etc., but in a separate video. Okay. I've got about 87 gigs of free drive space on my nested VM. You may potentially, but it's unlikely, run your nested VM out of drive space. If that happens, that's a big problem. Because then what I have to do is copy a previously built VM's virtual hard drive over, and that can take a day. Okay, so here though is where you're allowed to run Windows updates and open Access and Excel and look at these tools. We're going to look at these tools in future videos moving forward. Okay, so in the downloads folder of my nested VM, there are a number of links and other things. We're going to cover each of these in turn, with the possible exception of my to-do list, although I may bring it up to you. Okay, so how long have I been talking? Only 10 minutes. That's okay. This is just supposed to be a demo, not a full-length feature film here. If you want to practice this on your own machine, you can download the personal edition of Oracle Database Server version 11G. This is old, but it's free, and it works perfectly in this environment. And because it's the personal edition, it obviously doesn't come with any enterprise features. But even if it did, we're not touching anything beyond 100 level stuff. This is a freshman/sophomore level class. So we're not going to be talking about stored procedures or triggers. We're not going to be talking about backups and transaction logs and things like that. So you don't need the newest version. Okay? This is the database server we're going to run. The program we're going to use to connect to that server is called Oracle's SQL Developer. Hey, I thought SQL was a Microsoft product. Yeah. Microsoft SQL is a SQL product. Actual SQL, structured query language, is a programming language. And Oracle has their own version of structured query language. So does Microsoft. So this is an Oracle product, the Oracle SQL Developer. Okay. We require Java, so I downloaded the newest version of the Java development kit that I was able to get to work with. So this might be an older version of Java, but that's okay, right? In our environment, who cares? Okay, the odds of somebody hacking this machine are really low, and even if they do, so what? Okay, there's no production data on it. There's no social security numbers. Your credit card information isn't stored. It's not a big deal. Other things we have to talk about. Mike Murock is the author of one of the textbooks that we use. The textbook that I'm using specifically creates databases for our use. Okay. So we're going to talk about this, but again, in a separate video. Okay. So this is just meant to be an introduction to connecting to Azure Labs. So to summarize, let me minimize this. You're going to go to your labs.azure.com page. I think I closed that I did not. I thought I closed it, but now let me see if I can sign back in. Oh, come on, let me see if I can sign back in without it taking all day. Once you get the invitation from me, you'll see this class. You'll click this rocker switch. Once it's running, you'll click this icon. This icon is what's going to get you this RDP file. You'll double click that RDP file. Now I'm already connected, so I'm not going to finish this. This RDP file, this is where you will type this password. You'll click OK. Your choice, remember me or not. You're going to get the warnings about the certificate. You might get warnings about allowing your local computer to be able to copy and paste into your Azure virtual machine. You want to choose yes for that option as well. Okay, now I'll hit cancel here, but you'll type in the password and click OK. Getting signed in brings you to this page. From this page, open Hyper-V Mangler. Yes, I know what I said, right? I have stupid pet names for all things related to Microsoft, right? It's not Manager, it's Mangler. Right-click and you'll choose Start. Starting this VM takes less than 2 minutes. Once the state switches to running, double-click it. It'll ask you to sign in. Here's the ID and password you need. Once you're signed in, here is where we're going to do all our work. Now I'll end this video here and we'll come back and we'll talk about these other things later. Let me know if you have questions. I'll talk to you in the next one.